dominant to the 5 chord. So hey everyone, Tony Winston here for Jazz Piano College. I was asked by a viewer to do something about secondary dominants, and that's what this video will be about. And I'm also going to do a quick book review on this book, Proving Ground, about the untold story of the 6 women who programmed the world's first modern computer, ENIAC. And also, I hate to be obnoxious. I try not to talk about this very often, but please subscribe. I do videos about classical music. I'm going to do one today on the song called The Storm. And of course, a lot of stuff about jazz and a few performances here and there. And one of my big goals in life is just to hit 100,000 subscribers and get that plaque that YouTube sends you. So please help me out there. And I promise that once I hit 100,000, I'm not that far, I got about like 28,000 to go or something. Once I hit that number, I will never again ask you to like the video, subscribe to the video. So I did consult a classical theory book about this. And let's just take the key of C first. So what we want to do, a dominant chord is like the 5 chord. In key of C, it would be a G. And it goes to C. And they call this tonicizing the C because you're, approaching it from a 5 chord to the C. Okay, now that's not a secondary dominant, that's the primary dominant. But to get to any of the other chords in C, which would be like a D minor, an E minor, F major, G major, A minor, and not this one, okay, but just those. You would want to approach them with a secondary dominant. So for this chord right here, we would do A7, or just even A, really. And what that does is it makes the D chord sound like home base. Sounds like we're home there, so we're tonicizing that chord. I never knew that word before today, but... And then we can do the same thing with the next chord, E minor. So we have a B7 to E minor. And then to get to the 4 chord, we just, do the dominant on the key that we're in and go to F and also up to G like that and up to A minor like this. So I made up a little exercise. There's probably a cool way to get back to the C here, but what I kind of did was go, and then that puts me in F. And so now I can do the same thing in F. So for the first chord, I want to tonicize. I hate that word. Maybe I'm saying it wrong. And then we're going to get to G minor and E7 to get to A minor. Of course, the F dominant 7th, I guess that's to the 4 chord. And that puts us back in B flat. Now, also in the theory book, it talks about using not necessarily the dominant chord, but like the dominant chord with the 3rd on the bottom. And what that is. If you look at G7, you're doing this part of the chord to get to C. All right, they call that like the 7 diminished chord or something. So we can do the same thing here. We're going to get to D minor, and of course that chord would be right here. So it's pretty easy to find. It's just a half step below the note you're going to. So like this. And then I guess from here, you could do some kind of a turnaround and do it again. And, when I play that progression, I think, well, there's a lot of songs that kind of have a good part of that makes up the song. In my heart, in my soul. I can't think what song that is, but... One of the keys I want to be really proficient in is F sharp. Don't ask me why, I just want to. So I'm going to do it in F sharp next. Uh-oh. Let me start this again. Think. Now, also, when we talk about secondary dominants, I think the most common one, and I mean, they seem like they all get used, but I think the most common one would be like on the 2 chord as a dominant to get to the 5 chord. And I keep running into this in classical music. You know, since the viewer asked about this, I was thinking about like so we started off in G sharp minor, and that reminds me I got to do this in a minor key too, so I'll do that in just a minute. So right there, we're doing G minor, and then he goes to up a whole step, which should be a minor chord, but makes it a dominant, maybe not a dominant, but at least a major chord, and that's going to get him to the 5 chord there. And that's a Bach's fugue in G sharp minor out of Well-Tempered Clavier, Book 1. It's a great fugue, too. It's a 4-voice, beautiful fugue. All right, before I do the minor key, let me talk just a little bit about my book here. There's a movie about this too that came out I think in 2014. I think you can rent it, but the book didn't come out until just this year, I believe, or last year. And it really does talk about how the women who were just as capable as the men, if not more so, when it comes to programming these computers and thinking logically through all the steps that the computer has to take and the timing of various things. For this huge computer, takes up an entire room, 80 feet long. Women were really kind of overlooked. Whenever they did news stories about the computer, they always mentioned the men, and they had pictures with the women in there, but they never gave their names. And then when they had a big press party, they asked the women programmers to come up and serve tea and pour coffee. You'd think that in the arts, like in music, that would be one of the first places that women are not treated like second-class citizens. And, when you see a symphony orchestra, usually there's a lot of women players, but not so much in rock and roll and jazz. Just take a look at Hans Zimmer's website. Look, here's all his people that are on his staff and everything. All right, I found one woman out of 50 people here. So I don't know what's going on with that. Certainly the women musicians I know are extremely capable, and a lot of times I prefer what they're doing to some of the histrionics that the men go through. Okay, let's do this in a minor key. So first of all, we have to look at what triads are, we have to find major and minor triads. Let's do it in D minor. So remember, the 2 chord is a diminished chord, so we can't go there. I think I'm doing it in the wrong key. Yeah. Then where are we going? That's it. I think in terms of frequency, how often we encounter a secondary dominant, the most common place is like on the 2 chord to get to the 5 chord. And if you do this in the blues a lot too, if you're on like a C and you're playing a blues. So that way I did a dominant 2 to the 5 chord. That's another thing too that I did not talk about, is that the secondary dominant can move to another secondary dominant like that. And then we start getting into a whole ball of wax that I really don't want to get into. All right, folks, one more time. Hit that subscribe button. That's the one, all right? That's the one I need. And thank you so much.